Hi everyone. Again, my name is Rifta Titania. I'm a compliance officer from digitalexchange.id. Digitalexchange.id is a crypto asset trading platform in Indonesia, such as Reku, where users can buy and sell crypto assets such as BTC, Ethereum, and other crypto assets safely and conveniently. And also, digitalexchange.id is officially registered at Bapepti. Um, okay, because Rian already shared to us about the details about this event, about FolksFest, and about the sponsors from DeadGad, from Toro Crypto, and my skills. Maybe we could continue about introduction about the speakers. And all the audience already know that we had two speakers, which is Jessie Choi and Kim Ann. But this session wouldn't be complete without introduction from them, isn't it? So I guess maybe Jessie first. Would you like to share to folks and to Utopians about Reku and about yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jesse Choi. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO at Reku. Reku, if you guys are not familiar, it actually used to be called Reckoning Coup as of about a year ago. But Reku is a crypto exchange. We're a top 3 exchange in Indonesia. We're the fastest growing one, which I'm very proud to say. And for us, I would say the things that make us special, just very quickly, are we really focus on compliance and security. That's kind of the core of what we do. And also we have our own platform, our own trading platform that we've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years, and we've been perfecting it. So at this point, we feel very good about it, and it's if you play around with it, it's actually the most liquid and the most efficient platform you can use. So our strength is really around kind of the core trading engine and the compliance and security around it. So yeah, that's kind of who we are quickly.
Introduction, and maybe it could be continue with Ken Ann, which you would like to share about capital and about yourself, please. Thank you.
Sure. Hi everyone. My name is Chinan. I am a partner at Saison Capital. We are based in Singapore, but very active investors in Indonesia, investing actively in both non-crypto and crypto companies. So in Indonesia, we have done about 4 or 5 Web3 kind of early stage investments, backing quite a few of the locals that are starting projects. And on the non-Web3 side, we've done about maybe 10, mostly across fintech and B2B commerce. So for us, early stage investors that it's backed by one of the largest financial institutions in Japan. So that the parent company is Credit Saison. They are one of the largest kind of lenders and credit card companies. So the idea is we bring the speed of an early stage VC and also the size of a large financial institution to play. And I previously was the co-founder of Glints, which is one of the largest recruitment platforms in the region.
Thank you so much, Kenan, for introduction. Now, in this session, as we all know, we'll be talking about VC or venture capital, key factors that make project attractive to VCs. Okay, before we start the questions, I want to remind to all of the audience that you guys can ask a question to our speakers because we have a Q&A session on the end of this session. So better prepare your question and drop on the chat box down below. Yeah. Okay. As we know, guys, venture capital has shown significant interest in the blockchain sectors due to immense potential to transform various industries. Some blockchain sectors that have attracted a lot of investment from venture capital include like finance, banking, logistic and supply chain management, and entertainment media. So the question is, so what are the specific technological factors that VCs look for when evaluating a blockchain project, and how important is the project's underlying technology? This question first for Kim Ann, and maybe, okay, here is yours.
Sure, thanks for that. I think the first and foremost, it's to really figure out what kind of company you're building. And generally, there are 2 kinds, right? One, it's where product and tech it's your advantage. And the other, it's maybe your go-to-market or your BD, your sales, it's your advantage, right? I think for the most part, at least for a lot of the projects that come out of Asia and of course Indonesia, it's actually the latter, right? Where of course you need a product that works, you need a good user experience, you need the basic technology, but you're not going to win because you have better tech, right? You're going to win because you have better go-to-market, you have better distribution, you can acquire users for cheaper and better than your competitors, right? So I think that's really kind of the trend that we have seen. Of course, your product must work, otherwise no one's going to use it. But really, that to me, it's just the basic, the table stakes. Really, what I usually spend more time talking to founders, it's how are you going to get distribution, right? Everyone out there, it's fighting for the same wallet, fighting for the same ETH, same BTC, same everything, right? And this applies not just in crypto, but even in non-crypto. So really, what is your advantage, and why are people going to trust you with their money to deliver? That's really kind of a lot more important for me.
All right, thank you. And Jesse, what about your opinion? Where does Reku stand out on this?
Yeah, I think Chinen's points are very valid. I mean, it seems, yeah, I think especially in Indo, it's a real consideration, right? In terms of, I think the go-to-market side is maybe less like sexy or less talked about, but it's definitely extremely important, and more so here. I think for us, Reku is quite lucky because we feel like we actually have a distinct product advantage. And so within the kind of the exchange space, it's quite an interesting space, right? Because just like in e-commerce, you're selling more or less the same things at more or less the same prices. You can differentiate on the margin a little bit here and there, but it's primarily the same product. And so every day it's kind of a knife fight in a lot of ways. So if we kind of have made a choice to, are we going to really focus on the distribution and the branding and kind of getting people to know? And the analogy that I always use is if you're building a house and you have, what's the first thing you're going to do? Are you going to have that open house, have it really pretty and nice and draw a lot of eyeballs? A lot of companies have done that. And then it turns out that the infrastructure of what they've done is quite simple or quite basic or less stable. For us, we did it the other way around. We make sure that the foundation is really solid, the pipes are really good, and then we can always build the house on top of that later. And so that's kind of been our priority. So that's why we've kind of built our own engine as opposed to whitelisting someone else's. And then also we keep our team costs and our team very, very lean so that we can have the best kind of revenue model out there and therefore the cheapest prices for our users. So that's kind of been our philosophy. But yeah, I think, both sides are very important, and we have the luxury or the privilege of being able to diversify kind of on the ground in terms of the foundation and the technology. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting battle. And I think those two sides that Chinen was saying are very, very valid, something we think about every day. Yeah.
Right, all right. That was quite interesting. Okay. As you guys said before about the factors that VCs look when evaluating the project, I'm a little bit curious about the example of the project. Can you provide example of blockchain project that successfully attracted VC funding and detail the specific technological innovation or use cases that made them stand out in the eyes of investors? And this is for Kenan.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the tech part, it's really kind of like, of course, it's core, but it's really not usually the main reason why we invest, right? I think a big part of why we invest, it's really a belief in the team. So for example, one of our more recent investments is in this company called D3 Labs. It's started by some of the ex-Toko Crypto founders and a management team. And for them, what they're building, it's a stablecoin settlement system, right? The idea is today, if you look at how money flows, it's still going through the same systems that existed 20, 30 years ago. So can we use blockchain to build a product where, we can move money without relying on these old and expensive systems? So for them, of course, because of their technological advantage, they were able to build the product. But I think more importantly, they combined it with an understanding of what customers really wanted, right? So they have actually signed up partnerships with some of the largest banks and some of the largest kind of agri players in Indonesia itself. And really, it's like a deep understanding of what the problems that these customers face, and then building the kind of solutions and features to really address it, right? So I think that really reflects how I think great technology innovation or like something that appeals to investors, right? It's not about what's the coolest or the sexiest thing. It's really about what do your customers need, and can you demonstrate that they're willing to pay for it?
Really good answers. Okay. Now, Jesse, we know that behind Reku is so many highly talented team. And what I'm trying to say is, in the context of attracting VC investment for blockchain project, what are the key considerations for building a strong and technically proficient team, and how blockchain developers leverage their skills and expertise? And what's the recipe for creating a strong team from Reku's perspective?
Yeah, sure. So I think in terms of the high level team and building a powerful team, I think one of the things that I look for the most is actually around kind of flexibility, like mental flexibility. I think the reality is this space is, in the last 12, 24 months has shifted a lot. There's been a lot of different things that have happened, and the market has moved in a lot of different ways. What used to have product market fit doesn't, and vice versa. And that requires the team to be very, very nimble. So one, I really value kind of mental flexibility. That's something that I'm looking for. People who can be independent problem solvers, who can shift with the winds and all of that. At a higher level, I think that also has made me want to build a very, very lean team. So for example, we have the C level, and then under that we have a head level. We don't have the typical SVP or the VP or even other Cs besides the co-founders. And we do that because we want to make sure that we can be as nimble and cater to as many changing market dynamics as possible. So that's kind of how I would say broadly on the team. In terms of the technical side, for our business, when it comes to specific technical expertise on blockchain, it's actually not very difficult. I would say, we have an architect on our team who's quite skilled at this, and he leads all of it. Of course, without him, he's a very important piece of our team. But I would say that a lot of us have learned on the job, and it's not something that we found that we have to test for very deep, blockchain experience or anything like that. It's actually not too hard to learn. So I would say on the technical front, for us, again, primarily the ability to run fast, to run lean, but nothing very, very technical beyond that for now.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. We already talked about how to make a strong team, and now let's back to the VC's topic. As you know, guys, we know that decentralized applications are one of potential role in making a blockchain project attractive to VCs. Maybe Kenan, you can take this one. I want to know about how does market potential, token economics, and the centralized application or the apps play a role in making a blockchain project attractive to VCs, and how can founders effectively communicate their market strategies and business models?
Sorry, could you ask the first part of the question? I got the second part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How does market potential, token economics, and decentralized application, the apps, playing a role in making a blockchain project attractive to VCs?
Yeah. So I think one of the challenges that most Web3 founders will face today, it's very hard to answer the market size question, right? For the most part, market size, if you just look at today, will remain relatively small, especially if you are targeting the B2B audience, right? I think for B2C is a bit more interesting because, especially with folks like Reku coming in, they're really educating the market. They're really helping more people to access and experience crypto. So I think there's a good argument to be made that, hey, we're really increasing the size of the market, and there's a lot of strong data around it. I think a challenge will come if you're building something that's more like B2B, so not serving the retail crowd, whether you're building tooling and all of that. And I think a big part is really about demonstrating creativity, right? We have backed companies that are in the Web3 B2B space, and actually they realize very quickly that yes, they managed to get some customers, they managed to get users in the Web3 space, but they actually also built such kind of like products for the Web2 audience, right? And that's really how they kind of think about expanding the market size. So the idea is that for a lot of these Web2 audience, they just have certain problems to be solved. They don't care whether it's on blockchain or not. right? And that's really kind of how you need to think about expanding the market size, because if you're just building something purely for the Web3 crowd, more often than not, it's going to be insufficient and the market size is going to be kind of small. So I think really the idea is to be creative around here. Just because you are a Web3 company, Web3 founder, doesn't mean that you can only serve other Web3 founders or companies, right? You should definitely expand the scope and figure out, blockchain or not, whose problem am I really solving?
All right, all right. Okay. Okay, guys. And now, that we know in every industry, especially in Web3 industry, if we play a role in exchange, we really have to maintain customer and investor relation. But I'm a little bit curious about how do you see the relationship between community adoption and the attractiveness of a blockchain project to VCs? And what milestone or metrics should blockchain entrepreneurs aim to achieve to gain investor interest? What are the key metrics that is important to Reku for maintaining customer and investor relation, Jesse?
Yeah, for us, I don't know if this is the case for every team, but for us, we work quite closely with our Series A lead investor to just make sure that we're aligned on what that key metric is. For us, that key metric, historically at least, has been volume, GTV. Total transaction volume. And the reason for that is we're a GTV-based business. We make money because we take a small cut of the volume. So in theory, the more volume you have, the more revenue you have, and it's all good. So that's kind of been our key metric. Having said that, of course, nowadays, it's not just about growth, right? Like, for example, other companies, their key metric was acquiring users. But I think that's even one step more how do I say, indirect, right? Because yes, if you have more users, it's good, but it doesn't mean that they'll translate very, very nicely to revenue. And so, we're shifting a lot of our thinking just to making sure we're focusing on the core business. What are we doing to drive revenue? What are we doing to drive profitability? And I think the way that we're thinking about the future of this business is we're not trying to just force profitability by cutting costs. I think a lot of companies are trying to do that, but we're trying to grow into our profitability and try to do it in a sustainable manner. So I think that's kind of the shift that we're thinking about. But yeah, I mean, of course, at the end of the day, especially times like now, investors are laser focused on, is this an actual business model that can make money, not just acquire a ton of users, which I think is easier than actually building a sustainable business. So I think it just comes down to kind of the core of, do you make money and do you make it profitably and do you make it sustainably? Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's dive right deeper into about Reku. I want to know. I have another question. It's in the competitive crypto exchange landscape, how has Reku been proactive in building and maintaining trust with its investors, especially considering the dynamic nature of the cryptocurrency market?
Yeah, we try to stay as close to them as possible. We have quite a casual but regular interaction with them, so we treat them as genuine thought partners. So I don't worry too much about having to manage them, and there's a lot of I think startups that really spend a lot of time managing the board and things like that, and luckily we're not in a situation where we have to do a ton of that. Of course, a little bit, but not a tremendous amount. For us, we are just very realistic about what's working and what's not. And we're lucky, to be honest, we're in a lucky spot because a lot of things have been working, when it comes to our North Star metric of transaction volume. We've exceeded that significantly. We've exceeded our target significantly, and we've grown really well in the last, let's say 18 months. So we haven't really seen, I guess, the very stressful times when the investor and the company might clash. But for us, we're just very upfront. We don't try to hide anything. We're not trying to sell them. We've already done that. And now we're just in a situation where, hey, we can spend 20 minutes talking about what's really good, but let's spend the rest of the time talking about what's not going well and how can we really work together to make that happen. And sometimes they can help, sometimes they can't, but that's okay. It's just good to have a partner in that way. So we just try to make sure that the partnership is truly as much of a partnership as possible.
All right. Okay. I have another question, if I may. Crypto exchange often face challenges in achieving profitability. Could you share insight into Reku's strategy and milestone on the path to becoming a profitable company and how it's aligned with the evolving market dynamics?
Sure. I think I actually think that I'm not sure that I would agree with your very first sentence. I think that an exchange is a really solid business model from my point of view. There's a lot of business models, especially in developing countries like Indo, where it hasn't been proven out, and you're really hoping that it's a business, right? You're hoping that you can acquire a lot of users, and you can get really big in that way, and then you can make money from them somehow later. An exchange is not like that. I mean, the exchange is pure. You can't not make money. If you're doing transactions on your platform, you're making money. I think it's one of the most solid business models, and I think especially in kind of the crypto space, it's one of, if not the only business model that's really, really worked. So I would actually say that it's quite a healthy revenue model, quite a healthy business model. And for example, this company before our Series A was profitable because we didn't have much cost. We didn't spend a lot on marketing and expansion, blah, blah, blah. Our team was very, very lean, and we ran profitably, and it was fine. Now that we have more money, we're not profitable because we're spending it, which is what we're supposed to be doing. But I think it wouldn't be very hard for us to be profitable again. Like I mentioned, we're trying to grow into that. So what we're doing is really making sure that we are listening to our users. We're trying to engage the community very directly, of course, branding and all these things too, but really having a personal touch, and then trying to differentiate on product. Like I said, really focusing on kind of like, what is the core experience of that product? Is it liquid? Is it fast? Is it cheap? And trying to differentiate on that way and make sure we're telling that story. And so far, we're lucky that I think a lot of that story has resonated. Yeah, I think if we continue to do that and continue to do the right things, we'll eventually grow into our profitability. And I really do believe that this is a very healthy business model at the end of the day. So we feel quite blessed, yeah, in that way.
Okay. I have one last question, and it's for both of you. Are there specific trend or sectors within the broader blockchain space that you view as particularly promising or interesting for future investments? Maybe Jesse first?
Sure. Yeah, I think from my point of view, a lot of the stuff maybe that's using like what D3 does, right? I think using a lot of the benefits of the blockchain technology and kind of the core tenets of Web3 and applying it to a Web2 world. To me, I think that those are maybe less like pure Web3, or maybe the purist crypto people will kind of not like it as much. But I think that the challenge right now is to prove that do you actually, besides the hype, besides the taglines of crypto or Web3 or whatever, do you actually have a business model that solves a burning need in this world? And I think that most of the opportunities are captured there at the end of the day. So I'm seeing a lot of interesting companies coming up that are, now that regulations are also solidifying a little bit better in certain countries, seeing a lot more around, helping facilitate payments, or like in D3's case, a little bit broader, right? Yeah, I would say that B2B using blockchain infrastructure to do potentially more cross-border, or not even cross-border, intercompany type things. Yeah, I think that's an actual business model, and I think that's probably relatively more interesting right now than, for example, like another NFT project or another DeFi project, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. And maybe can then could you answer the question?
Yeah, I think very much similar to what Jesse said, right? We're huge believers in the intersection of, in fact, we believe the next wave of fintech will be a function of, will be built on top of Web3 and the blockchain. And I think, like, if you look at fintech, there are so many models that have proven to make money, right? Whether it's lending, wealth, insurance. And I think there's so much inefficiencies that exist today. So I think that's definitely kind of one of the big areas that we're excited about. I think really the advice I would give to everyone is, when you're thinking about building a Web3, figure out whether you are going to compete with someone who is local or regional, or you're going to go global, right? And that's also honestly the reason why we like businesses that have a bit more of a local advantage. We're like, not everyone can come into Indonesia to build a crypto exchange like Reku, right? And so there's a certain kind of like competitive advantage, some form of moat around it. But let's say today you want to do an NFT project or a DeFi protocol, right? Like you're not just competing with other people in Indonesia, you're competing with everyone like in the world, right? US, Europe, people with a lot more funding. It's not to say it's impossible, but it's just you got to play at a global scale, right? And are you ready to compete at a global scale? I think that's an important question to ask. And maybe if the answer is no or not yet, then try to figure out what some local or regional advantages that you can play to your benefit.
All right, guys. Okay, I agree with both of your opinion. Okay. So we all know that the relationship between community adoption and VC interest is significant. Blockchain entrepreneurship aim for milestone like user growth, network activity, and community engagement to capture investor interest. Recommending active community involvement is crucial for success, as I can conclude it. Okay. Now we are on the edge of this session. As I mentioned before, that we open a Q&A for all the audience related to this topic. So now, have the audience already drop your question, guys? Maybe I'll say this first. Okay. Let's see the question box. Okay, we have some questions here. I read them one by one, and maybe Jesse or Kenan could answer it and follow to the other question. The first question is, do both of you invest as personal individual? Could you generally spell what projects that you invest? This question first. Who wants to answer this? Maybe Kenan. Okay.
I can go first. The answer is yes. I do invest as an individual, but like I mean, it's quite diverse, right? It's probably too early to share. I think really at the end of the day, it's important to figure out what kind of investors you're bringing on, and investing in early stage projects is very different from investing in your Bitcoin, your ETH, right? I think those are two completely different strategies. So I think that's something that I want to call out. And I guess also there's a second question, right? Which is what are the top 5 VCs that are leading? I mean, like everyone will have different answers towards what the top 5 VCs are. I think what's most important is to find investors that are willing to spend the time with you and to help you out, right? It's no point you have a very nice logo, but there's no help, no support that's given. I think it's really at the end of the day, figuring out who believes in you and who is willing to support you, right? I think that's a lot more meaningful than try to figure out, who has the largest fund size or who has the most well-recognized logo.
Yeah. For me, I would say as a personal individual, I used to do a lot more investing in the space, both kind of, publicly available stuff as well as like angel investing into projects. But I actually now made it a clear thing from my point of view not to do that anymore, because I'm already like, as a personal portfolio or as a human being, like I'm already way too over indexed into this industry because of my company, of course. So I try not to have too much exposure. But yeah, I used to be a lot more active before. And then in terms of the second question, I think just like what Shannon said, yeah, I totally agree. There's no point in looking at these vanity metrics. I mean, in my experience, I've worked for, really, really big investment firms and also smaller ones. And it really just comes down to just the fit between what the vision of that fund is and what the founder is and how much support you can get out of them. And I would say even more granularly, like even if there's a company, a VC that's like known to be very supportive, for example, it doesn't even translate that well across deals sometimes. Sometimes they're more supportive to certain teams or other founders or whatever. So it really comes down to that personal fit at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay, there is a following question from the same person. And for retail investor reference, what are the top 5 VC that are leading in cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I kind of addressed that earlier, but like at the end of the day, like you can Google that answer. Everyone's answer will be different, right? And like what Jesse said, right? Find the right investors. So yeah.
Okay. Let's read another question. It's from Evan. What's your point of view about real world asset that is lately trending on the Web3 market? Maybe Jesse first.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm seeing kind of a smaller sliver of Web3 broadly than I think someone like Chen. So I'm seeing a lot more kind of on the investment side and things like that. But I think the biggest one in terms of real world asset, at least that's relevant for us and something we're thinking about is like treasuries, right? And right now, US Treasuries is returning like over 5%, and so I think there's a lot of companies that are trying to capitalize on that and tokenizing the treasury and trying to make that same return and offering it on their platform. So that's something that we're seeing quite a lot in international exchanges, not so much local ones, but yeah. And I think that kind of stuff, like taking traditional financial, especially instruments that you can't usually get access to as a retail investor, like treasuries. I think it's quite an interesting use case for the real world asset stuff. Yeah.
Okay, how about you, Kenan?
Yeah,
What's about your point of view?
Yeah, I think echoing what Jesse said, right? US Treasury bills are kind of one of the largest areas, but I think real world assets is quite a vague term, right? It just refers to anything that exists in the real world, financial assets. So I think for us, like I mentioned, right, I think that we see a lot of inefficiencies in fintech. If you think about cross-border money movement, the way a dollar moves across borders still remains largely the same as 10 years ago, right? So I think the question and the opportunity we see is there ways to basically move money differently using the blockchain? And then that is actually what excites us.
Okay, thank you for the answers. All right, Jesse, I have one last question before we close this Q&A. I feel a bit curious about Reku. We know that crypto service in Indonesia still growth in Indonesia, right? With the growing demand for crypto service, what strategic initiative does Reku have in play for business expansion in the near future? Are the specific markets or services the company is targeting for growth?
Yeah. So the question is around what are the strategies for differentiating? Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things, right? If we can segment them into like very big projects, and then a lot of like quality of life improvements, right? So if you think about Tokopedia versus Shopee or whatever, at this point in their strategy, their whole strategy to grow is kind of around these small quality of life improvements, and then making sure that you're staying up to top of mind, right, in terms of the marketing side. I think we're not quite there yet, but the reality is a lot of what we do is quality of life improvement. So for example, we have a bunch of different features, like we have social feature where you can vote on certain things and you can learn how to invest. We have like portfolio analysis type stuff where we go deeper into understanding the insights of your own trading behavior versus other people. And so we try to innovate in those ways. But if you really think about, if you're being very critical, these are smaller, right? They're not company defining changes. In terms of the company defining changes, we tried to limit what that really looks like. But we do, of course, explore those very often. I can't share too much about what's happening, but realistically speaking, you can go, I think there's a few different strategies, right? But you can go very horizontally deep into crypto. So you can go much deeper into providing a true Web3 experience, enabling, cross transacting with DeFi platforms, things like that, right? You can go very, very deep, or you can choose to go a little bit more horizontal. You can think about crypto as an asset class. And then, so how do you provide, all the various products and features that you would for other traditional asset classes. For us, we kind of are more this way. Our mission as a company is actually around being the guide to wiser investing. And so we think about, first and foremost, the adoption of this industry will be around understanding it as an investable thing. And that, we believe, is kind of the gateway to the rest of crypto. So that's kind of our mission. And so what we do, and you'll see in the near future, but we'll have products that are very much focused on how we think a lot about how do we make investing smarter investing, not riskier investing, but really smarter and more informed investing. How do we make that as easy as possible with as few words or as few products or as few clicks as possible? So that's kind of how we're thinking about it, which is not exactly the very vertically deep crypto approach, but we think that this is probably the more reasonable route to mass adoption at the end of the day.
All right, thank you, Jesse. Actually, guys, we have a bunch of questions. Another questions. Maybe I'll read another one. How about NFT for the next bull run? NFT will back. What approach will NFTs bring to the next bull run? Would you, Jesse, or can answer this question?
Yeah, I can try that, right? I think NFTs really kind of brought the whole idea of entertainment to the space that was not previously present in the previous crypto cycles, right? But I think what people very quickly realize is that most of the NFTs now are pretty worthless. Even the supposed blue chip ones, the prices have either come down a lot or have stumbled, right? I still think NFTs as the technology has a huge role to stay. It will be present. In fact, we see it being used a lot in even in things like the RWA space. It just wouldn't be the PFP format, right? The profile picture format of like your Bored Apes or your CryptoPunks, right? I think the season for that is over. There will always only be a CryptoPunks, like which is the first ever OG NFT. And if you think about the Bored Ape Yacht Club, it's really a 1 in a billion chance of that happening, right? And it happened. I don't think it will happen again. So I think that's definitely it, right? I think gone are the days where you can come out with 10,000 profile pictures and sell it for a couple $1 million. So yeah, it's just a different time, a different space that we're at today.
Well, thank you.
If I may add to that one, I think if you think about like internet back in the day, there's all these like useless websites. Like this is like Web 1, right? Like for every one interesting project or interesting website or whatever, there were 100 totally useless ones, right? All like just trash content and nobody's ever heard of them. I can't even list many of them, right? I think NFTs is similar. It's if just because there's a lot of useless projects does not mean that the technology or the philosophy behind NFTs is not there. I think it's very, very interesting. Actually, I actually think it's one of the most interesting things still, because I mean, we're talking about real world assets and things like that. It's all kind of related, to the NFT kind of technology and philosophy. But yeah, I think we're just kind of at that early stage where we haven't really figured out what's useful, but we know that a lot of what we have now is not very useful, but it absolutely does not mean that it will not be more interesting going forward. So yeah, that's just what I would add to that.
Okay, thank you, Kenan and Jesse, for the answers. And thank you, Boy, for the question. Maybe I'll read another question. What is the most potential tech sector next year from Jesse and Kenan perspective? It's from Anonymous.
I can go for that. I've been saying RWA, real assets, so maybe let's pick another one, right? But I think because my stance on RWA is clear. Look, I think there's still a lot that can be done in DeFi. And in particular, I think as more and more protocols come out, we're going to see more and more interesting opportunities. I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but over the past week, a new L2 launch, right? Blast, offering native yield on chain. And then, of course, opportunities of farming and all that. I think broadly, the space of crypto still remains very speculative, very much like a casino. People always want to try new ways to make money. And I think that's not going to change, right? So I think the opportunities in DeFi, in particular, the stuff that allows people to speculate, to have fun, to have entertainment, I think those things are going to be interesting.
Okay. Thank you for the answers. Maybe another one question. It's from Jordan for Jesse. Is there any upcoming innovation for Reku as an exchange? I mean, like sometimes exchange is just do, sell, and trade, right? Is it possible maybe Reku will create other features to drive more mass adoption?
Yeah, I think this is quite similar to the question that you asked earlier. Yeah, we are very focused on this mission of making being the guide to making wiser investing decisions. So a lot of that is us thinking about how do we not only give the right information, because you can always read about things, you can always try to be as informed as possible as an individual. But also, how do we build trust for Reku such that people will trust Reku, and when we say something or we have certain analysis that goes beyond just news or whatever, or we create some kind of framework to think about how to assess risk, for example, across projects, how do we make sure that people think that we're credible and people trust us at the end of the day? So that's what we really believe will be the, in terms of the wave of mass adoption in crypto as an investment class. It's not about providing more news or anything like that, because there's so much out there. It's really about how do you make it as simple as possible, and how do we become like a trusted partner and not just a provider, an informal provider. So that's kind of a lot of what we think about. And then how do you structure certain investing, products basically off of that philosophy. So I know that's a little bit vague. I could, but I don't think it's right to share more about how we're thinking about or what we're planning on doing. But let me just say, it's something that the team is thinking about every single day in terms of how do you drive this adoption as simply as possible with and establish Reku as a trusted platform at the end of the day.
All right. Thank you for the answer, and thank you, Jordan, for the question. Okay. Maybe that's it for the Q&A session because we have limited time in here. Okay. Before our session end, I want to hear a closing statement. Maybe it's from both of you. Maybe Jesse, would you like to share about your closing statement first?
Sure. Yeah, I think to close, thank you all, of course, for being here. I think these are really interesting questions. I think for us as a company, I hope that you have a better sense of kind of who we are. We're trying to really kind of grow the market together. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for our users to become more informed. And we really focus on doing the right things. I'm not just trying to be, vague or whatever, but there's we really prioritize doing things the right way, really caring about the user, even sometimes at the expense of how much work we have to do or whatever. We really care about compliance. We really care about safety and things like that. And I think that's what keeps us, differentiated. And I think people can see that. And we've quadrupled our market share in the last, 12 to 15 months. And I think that's a really, it's a testament to, I think, what we stand for and what we're doing as a company, I think is resonating with our users. But of course, if you have any questions or anything else, just feel free to reach out to me or my team. Happy to answer any further questions. And thank you all for being here.
Okay, thank you so much, Desi. And now Ken N.
Yeah, I think really think about how you're gonna get customers, get users. I think that's not enough. One can never spend enough time or effort to really think about customer acquisition. It's easy to fall in love with a product, to build a nice looking website, product, protocol, but really think about how you get users and how that differs from everyone else, right? If you're gonna say, I'm gonna pay KOLs, I'm gonna do a couple of advertisements, like that stuff doesn't work anymore. So really think about it. Yeah.
Right, thank you again for the closing statement. And to all the audience, this session and the next whole session, we'll be providing an e-certificate that you'll get from your registered emails. I guess that is from me. And thank you, Jesse and Kin, and for both of your time.
Thank you, everyone.
But nice to meet both of you. It's such an honor for me to be here to have a talk with both of you. Okay. Thank you for the audience for staying the whole session until the end of this session. And don't forget to join the next session. And it's talking about crafting the future of gaming. If any of you is a gamer or interesting about games, that would be great if you guys could join Maybe that's it for me. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Kenan. Thank you,
Thank you
all
all.
the audience. Thank you
All right.
all.
Thank you all. Thank you.